Ladies and gentlemen, we will be doing a spoiler review of Blade Runner 2049, which I happened to see. But before we do that, Psalms 33:18 and 19 definitely relate to this movie. Behold, the eye of the Lord is upon them that fear him, upon them that hope in his mercy, to deliver their soul from death and to keep them alive in famine. That pretty much summarizes this movie. Now, before I go on, there are some things you need to understand. I've heard a lot of people say this movie was a boring movie, and I believe it's because of their expectations. So, if you're ever to watch this movie, do understand, just because it is named Blade Runner, which I think is sometimes something that people do not understand, just the way how it's shaped and how it's labeled Blade Runner, which is more of an 80s font you're seeing, I think that threw people off. Most people who hear of the name Blade Runner, immediately they may relate it to something like Running Man, which is a film that starred Arnold Schwarzenegger back in 1987. Or they may be, think about movies more modern like The Hunger Games, or they may think of a movie, something like Tron Legacy, where people are running, they're avoiding danger, they're surviving, and basically there's a lot of running going on and blades being thrown. Let's put it that way. Blade Runner 2049 has nothing to do with that. It's not that kind of movie. All right? And almost immediately in the beginning of the movie it tells you what it is, but nonetheless a lot of people are expecting this movie to be also like these movies because those movies were action movies. A lot of action in the movies. Okay? Blade Runner has never been and never will be that. All right? Blade Runner, and what a Blade Runner is best explained by me going through the movie and spoiling it for you. And I will do that in a minute. But first of all, Blade Runner, the director, first of all, Blade Runner is Denis Villeneuve. And Denis Villeneuve is not known for action-heavy movies. He's not known for movies which are not reflective, first of all, and they don't have great stories and content behind them. He's never been known for that. And I point to you this film called Arrival. If you haven't seen it, you should really go check it out. And it's a different kind of movie. I've already done a review on it. It's a different kind of movie which has a twist to it. All right? That's what Denis Villeneuve does. In fact, anytime you hear of a movie coming out, you should really investigate the director of the movie to get the feel for what kind of movie you're really going in to do. That's what critics should be doing, but apparently they don't do that all the time. And they misunderstand movies. So, you have to judge a movie based on what kind of movie we're talking about. This movie is a sci-fi. All right? Now, all the other movies I just mentioned were also sci-fi movies. Running Man, The Hunger Games, and Tron. But the difference is that Villeneuve, he does thriller, dramatic, intellectual sci-fis. He's always done it that way. All right? So when you hear of a Denis Villeneuve film, you're looking for drama-heavy, thriller, intellectual sci-fi. He never does it the same way like other sci-fi movies, other sci-fi directors do. So you're going to go into something that's relatively deep and has twist to it. All right? So I just wanted to make that disclaimer before we go into Blade Runner 2049. Now I'm spoiling it off the jump. This movie is about deliverance. There are a group of beings, shall I say, beings who are enslaved. And they see a way out of their enslavement. They see a way out from their destruction. And basically, Blade Runner 2049 is about that. It actually is a sequel. It's a follow-up to the first Blade Runner film. And the first Blade Runner film was about a Blade Runner. It was centered around Harrison Ford's character, known as Agent Deckard. Agent Deckard, he was a human being. He was not synthetic being. There are different kinds of beings in the Blade Runner universe. We have humans, we have artificial intelligence, and we also have replicants. Very simply put, a replicant is a biosynthetic replication of a human being. The genetic code of a human being is used in petri dishes and creates this biosynthetic human, which is why it's called a replicant, because there's some sort of variation, genetic variation of it in actual life that's actually been used. And these replicants were genetically modified to have super strength and some other qualities like advanced healing and durability, though they had at least the initial replicants had a limited lifespan. And these replicants were created as product on other planets and enslaved and pretty much given to do tasks that human beings would find much more difficult to do because they were expendable. If they died in the process, it was okay. They were not thought to have souls. They were thought as a product. The Tyrell Corporation created them. And they revolted. And there was a great war. And they revolted on colonies and killed off sometimes their owners and destroyed a lot of people and revolted from the colonies. And there was a great war that happened because of that. But even so, these replicants came back to Earth. And Blade Runners, they were called Blade Runners because they were the ones to get rid of these replicants, these rebels, these not controllable replicants. And these replicants existed on Earth after Agent Decker had come in, done his case, and left. They existed and they rebelled, and eventually there was this great blackout where they were able to use an EMP and blast the Earth and out all the power and put it into the Dark Ages for a little bit. And because of that, replicants were banned. But this gentleman here was able to replicate more replicants this time, which were fully controlled by humans and would never do humans harm. And in fact, they were the perfect slaves, the perfect product. And humans could do whatever they wanted to them, kill them, whatever. They would obey. They would be compliant, fully. And so replicants were created. And then Blade Runner, another Blade Runner, following Deckard, who Deckard disappeared. He found out the truth about what the replicants were about, and each sought to protect a particular replicant. So he left. But this Blade Runner here, who is known in the movie as Agent K, he's an actual replicant, actually. He goes on to be a Blade Runner. He disposes of all these older replicants. The newer replicants that comply, he does not. His job is not to get rid of them. His job is to get rid of older replicants. And by getting rid of an older replicant who said something particularly interesting to him, he was led on the trail to finding the first Blade Runner, or at least the Blade Runner in the first Blade Runner movie, which was Harrison Ford's character, who was Agent Decker. And in short, Agent K, because of some of the implants that are in him, he goes on to have clues which will lead him closer and closer to Agent Decker. And some of these clues really are concerning a replicant that seemed to be capable of having children. And this was brought to the attention of Wallace, who was creating this new breed of replicants, and he wanted to harness that power to not make replicants himself and the technology of his workers to make replicants, but now he wanted replicants to make them own selves. And in so doing, he wouldn't have to work so hard to make other slaves and perfect product. So he, on finding out the information that Agent K would get to know, he now wants Agent K to lead him to Agent Decker, who would tell him where this offspring is, and therefore he would be able to harness the power of replicants replicating themselves. And so that's the essence of the movie. But here's the liberating. These are the details now of the movie that are liberating. So Agent K because he realizes his dreams are not just abstract, but they're actually real things, he's beginning to find the different things he sees in his dreams, and it leads him to Decker's daughter. Now, in the movie, he doesn't know it's Decker's daughter. We don't know it's Decker's daughter. I'm revealing the story to you. This is spoilers, right? So he leads him to Decker's daughter, but he doesn't know it's Decker's daughter. He's thinking that because he knows all these dreams, he has the question. He's thinking maybe he is the offspring of Decker. He's that replicant that actually was born. And this is because the actress who plays the artificial intelligence that lives with Agent K, who calls him now Joe, keeps on telling him he's so special. She always knew he was special. And she repeats that over and over. So he starts to believe that he's probably the one that's born, the replicant that's born. But he still goes on to pursue. And when he talks with Decker, he still believes he's the replicant. But when he is talking with Decker, he finds Decker and he's talking with him. Kay's agent, a lady, she tracks him down and she takes Decker from him, and she stabs him up and leaves him for dead. He's supposed to die. But remember, they have some healing powers. Now, one of the people I didn't talk about was there was this rebel lady, head of a rebel group, who actually she was the one that allowed the birth of Decker's daughter. She was investigating Kay all along, and she was able to bring her ladies in there who were behaving like hookers in another part of the world, will bring them in and be able to get Agent K, or aka Joe, healed back up. And then she told Joe the whole story about Decker's daughter and how she was the real replicant that could change the course of things for the replicants, could actually allow them to live lives like normal human beings. And these replicants, by the way, they had unlimited lifespans. So after the rebellion, where they had shortened lifespans, these replicants could actually live out their full lives. But they were being exterminated, of course, by Blade Runners, which was what Kay was. But Kay now changed his mind, and he decided to do what she said. But not exactly as she said. She said, kill Decker. She wanted him to kill Decker so that Decker wouldn't tell Wallace about his daughter. But Decker never told Wallace about the daughter because Decker didn't know where the daughter was. And Kay knew this. So Kay went on, because he knew who the daughter was now. When he said girl, it flashed him to the daughter. So Kay went to deliver Decker, and he saved Decker from the agent, killed the agent who had Decker, and was able to carry Decker to his daughter, but not before losing his life. That's the entire story. Now, I tell you this not because I want you guys to have the movie spoiled for you, but Blade Runner was not a movie about action and all of that stuff. It had some good action moments, but that was not what it was about. It was about a thriller. It was about, by the way, it was a magnificent movie. It was a thriller that encapsulated slavery and deliverance. Agent K, in a way, was a kind of savior because he was the guy that preserved for the replicants who wanted to have their own life and their own freedom and not be slaves. For the replicants who were that, he provided that option to preserve the replicant that can actually make other replicants. She's actually living, and she's not been found by Wallace, who would have made dissected her and made genetic replicants that can actually give birth. Also, he was also the deliverer in the sense that he saved Decker's life after his wife had died a long time ago, giving birth to the child. And not only did he save Decker's life, but he also reunited Decker with his daughter, who he never found out where she went. So he didn't know. He was able to do that. And he was able to do that while his life was lost, because he realized his whole life was an illusion. And even the AI that was with him, she was actually just a replication of another AI that was basically a whore. It was a prostitute that actually used to work, and say basically the same things. You're special and stuff. It was just a program that was doing that. So he realized his life would have meaning if he could get Decker to see his daughter, and for the replicants, as they were explaining, for the replicants to also have hope in the fact that someone could replicate them if the daughter ever was to have contact with another human being. The funny thing about it was the daughter's immune system was so weak that she couldn't interact with other humans. She would get sick. So she had to stay away from humans. So I don't know how she would make contact with anyone. But it's just, it leaves the story kind of open-ended, and there's still a lot of questions to the story, but it's just one of those stories where I just told you the story. But the ramifications of this story are so far-reaching, it's not funny. It shows us how people can devalue things, and that's why Black Lives Matter is so important. Devalue things because they think that these people don't have these freedoms and privileges. So it talks basically about enslavement. It talks a lot of, very subtly about also that life is not what we think it is. You know, just like the first Blade Runner kind of brought that enlightenment in the last speech of the replicant that Deckard was fighting and running from. It also brought to light, may I say, which was very beautifully done, how people can bring other people together. How Agent K was able to bring, or Joe, was able to bring Deckard and his daughter together. The irony is Deckard could never touch his daughter, or he could see her, but he couldn't touch her. So I just thought this was cool. I didn't tell you all the details. There's a lot of details I left out, but I just wanted to give you the blueprint for the movie if you want to go and watch the movie after. I thought it was a masterpiece of a movie. Once again, do understand, when you go in to see movies, keep your mind empty. It does help if you have seen the first Blade Runner. All right. Now, looking back from the future to the past, the first Blade Runner doesn't look like all that, but at its time, it was very progressive. I mean, we had drones in that movie. We had genetic engineering in that movie. We had a lot of things that nowadays we kind of take it for granted because it's a reality now. Whereas back then, it wasn't like that. I think the second Blade Runner is better than the first also. I just think so. I thought that I like avant-garde films. I like indie films, and I also like foreign films. So, you know, that's just my thing. Now, having said that, I think this is possibly a niche film. This is what Henry Cavill was talking about. I don't think Batman v Superman was a niche film because I thought that niche films don't make that kind of money. They just don't. And I also feel that the big mouths in the industry and the people with clout in the industry have been speaking the loudest. But really, the average person liked it. They didn't love it, but they liked Batman v Superman. It was a little bit disappointing to some people because they expected, again, one thing, and they got another. And I think when people's expectations, that's why I don't go into any movie with expectations. Like Thor Ragnarok, as much as I don't like the advertising, I think the movie's overhyped. I don't know what it is. So until I see the story of a movie, I don't really pass judgment on movies. So that's what I would tell you guys. When you go into a movie, go watch the story of the movie. If you can't follow the story, then you can't judge the movie. It's that simple. Right? I just told you Blade Runner's story. So, Blade Runner at present, it's about a month and a day since it opened, and it's at 240 million, almost 241 million, and it's a production budget of 150 million. So it hasn't made money yet, but let's see what happens in the next month. You know, it's about 5 weekends in. It's not raking in a whole bunch of money. I don't know if it'll make it, but I hope it does because it's a really damn good movie. It really is. Those people saying Blade Runner is not a good movie, it's because they just don't understand it. If you don't understand a movie, I understand. I love sci-fi. I love intelligent movies. That's why I like Batman v Superman. So that's my thing. I decided I'll give you the spoiler for Blade Runner 2049. As you guys already know, I am a person who said I'm not going to really put out much videos, but you will. If I have to do a review, I will do it. That was Blade Runner 2049. I didn't see it in the best possible resolution. I didn't see it in the theater. I had to see it online here. But I love the story. It was great, touching. I love how they took their time and built the story. Fantastic stuff. I think the critics liked that and appreciated it because the director took his time to tell the movie. I think when movies are done in certain formats, I think critics, because they're so inflexible, they can't adjust. And I think also how a film may be advertised, the critics may be going in with not knowing it, but with bias against it. I always think that Zack Snyder has revolutionized comic book movies. I think he's made comic book movies more like a sci-fi. And I think that he does dramas. He does dramas, thrillers, action movies. That's what he does. This Justice League movie may get panned by the critics again. I don't know. Joss Whedon's putting his hand into it, so we never know. But I would say this. Justice League, if you think about Zack Snyder, it has to be in a certain kind of way. Even Wonder Woman was a certain kind of way because Zack Snyder was involved in that. He produced for Suicide Squad, but he didn't really have a hand in Suicide Squad, like in story or anything. So I think Warner Brothers. What I like about Warner Brothers, I gotta say this about Warner Brothers. I'll give them a hand for this. They really take risks with their directors. If you look at Warner Brothers right now, the Blade Runner 2049, fantastic film. Again, risks. And I think when you take risks like that, you can only end up doing great things. And that's what I like about Warner Brothers. They take a lot of risks. So they took a guy like Denis Villeneuve, and they said, "Hey, I love what you did in Arrival. Come and work Blade Runner 2049. We just hope you can do a good job of that movie." They did a great job with that movie. It's just that the movie, even I wasn't interested in the movie up to its release date. It was I saw a couple of interviews with Harrison Ford and with Ryan Gosling. I think that kind of sent me over the edge, and I was like, "Hey, I need to really check out this movie." And I went and looked at the first Blade Runner, and I liked it. And I realized it was a totally different movie to what I thought it was, like Running Man. I thought Blade Runner was like Running Man or Hunger Games or Tron Legacy. So I can see a lot of people going in there thinking, "Oh, maybe this is what this is," because the word Blade Runner, just kind of throws you into those kind of modes. And that's not the movie you're going to see. So I thought you guys enjoyed that. I hope you guys had a good one listening to this. Again, if you haven't seen Arrival, you should really go see that. That's a good movie. Rent it, whatever. Blade Runner is definitely a movie you should rent. It probably will be a cult classic as well, because I just love how they spell out all these subtle things that are actually happening in the world right now, today. And it definitely is a sequel to the Blade Runner movie. So, on that note, I hope you guys like that. Leave your comments in the comment section below. If you haven't seen Blade Runner 2 and you listened to my spoiler video and you thought, maybe I should go watch this movie, maybe I'll enjoy it, you should, because there's a lot of stuff I left out. You guys have a great one.